Hey everybody, Andrew here from the Revisionist Almanac. I am back again with another round of my list of my 50 best movies of all time, which I submitted to the Cinema Legacy poll, a collaboration orchestrated by Tom and Dana Duncan over at the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast. Now, I've already run through movies 50 through 21 in the first three parts. Go check those out if you haven't yet. And I'm going to pick up here with the movie that I felt was the 20th best ever made. And that would be Robert Zemeckis' 1985 classic, Back to the Future. For me, this is just about the quintessential 80s film, even though the majority of the movie is set in the 1950s. The DeLorean, Huey Lewis and the News, Michael J. Fox, all forever reminding me of the year I was born, thanks to having probably watched this movie hundreds of times over the years. Christopher Lloyd was also a huge part of my childhood, being in movies like Dennis the Menace, Camp Nowhere, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Addams Family, and more, but Doc Brown is like the crazy uncle I never had. Crispin Glover also brought all his weird vibes to the movie. Leah Thompson is perfect as Marty McFly's mom, but she's also the one swooning after him when he travels back in time. And of course, Thomas F. Wilson gives us one of the most fun-to-hate characters in film, Biff Tannen. Just don't call me chicken for not having this movie even higher, because it came dangerously close to making its way all the way into my top 10. At number 19, we get to Sidney Lumet's satire turned modern-day nightmare, Network. As I talked about earlier this season on an Almanac episode, I think 1976 is a truly all-time great movie year with things like All the President's Men, Taxi Driver, and Rocky, but Network remains the piece of work that year which sticks with me the most. And that seems to have gone for you as well, because when we put this up against Rocky in the social media vote, it knocked out The Italian Stallion, and it claimed the revised Best Picture that year. It's got a massive ensemble cast, which all bring their A-game, whether it's Faye Dunaway at the center as the star, or someone like Ned Beatty only getting one scene, albeit one that's as memorable as anything else in the film. And this is also the first time Sidney Lumet has shown up in my top 50. I think he's a true top 15 to 20 all-time director with masterpiece-level work, including Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, The Hill, Failsafe, all the way up to his final movie, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. For almost any other director that ever lived, making Network would be the crowning achievement in a career. But not Sidney Lumet, because the next movie on my list at 18 is another from this great director. Perhaps the single greatest script of all time, and one of the most impressive directorial debuts, it's of course 1957's 12 Angry Men. The defining legal drama, with a harmoniously balanced cast including Jack Warden, Lee J. Cobb, Jack Klugman, and Ed Begley. There's really not much to say about this movie being featured so prominently. It's also the go-to answer for anyone that ever says they don't like black and white movies to win them over. And I'm going to be covering the 1957 film year next season on the show with Tom Duncan from Gmote being a guest, and you can bet this is going to stand a very good chance to claim a host of revised wins on that episode. Up to number 17. We've already covered the first film, but now we get to maybe the greatest sequel of all time, and the movie that I personally prefer in the series, 1974's The Godfather Part 2 by Francis Ford Coppola. For most cinephiles, it is a fierce internal struggle between which of the two Godfather movies is superior. Or you're certifiably insane and you're someone who prefers the third film in the trilogy, but I have never met that person, and if I do, I'll let you know. As phenomenal and influential as the original is, I just find the second film far more interesting and rewarding on repeat viewings. I love the way we get to see Michael Corleone descend further into the darkness of his own nature. But most importantly in part 2, we get Robert De Niro arriving as a younger Vito Corleone in a separate timeline that sees his journey from Sicily to becoming the mafia head we all know from part 1. De Niro delivers an Oscar-winning performance, and he outshines Pacino, Duvall, Keaton, Cazale, and everyone else in the film. But more impressively, I think De Niro blows Marlon Brando's older version of Vito out of the water. And if The Godfather Part 2 isn't the top of the sequel pyramid, then it's without a doubt this next movie at number 16, The Empire Strikes Back from 1980. Everything people loved about Star Wars in 1977 got amplified with the second film just a few years later. New planets, new characters, better lightsaber battles, and maybe the biggest shock plot reveal in the history of cinema. I have so much to say about this movie and why it has made it so high up on this list. And if you want to hear much, much more about my thoughts on Empire, I did a full episode earlier this year on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, and you should hit pause on this right now. Go check that out at the link below, and then come back here to listen to the rest of my list. Up to number 15, and the second time Charlie Chaplin has featured in my top 50, this is what I think his best work is. That is 1936's Modern Times. Some might point to the Gold Rush, or the circus, or city lights, but when I think about the joy and exuberance Charlie Chaplin's films brought to me at a young age, nothing captures that feeling more than this movie. His ability to tell a story so well through physical comedy in an era before sound was fully realized is still continuing to inspire young performers close to 100 years after his acting peak. There was no better way to close out a career as the Little Tramp than what we get with this film. Now we get to the highest ranked animated movie on my top 50. The film that started it all for Pixar, 1995's Toy Story, clocks in at number 14. I am well aware that there are myriad other movies that have advanced technology to levels that make this movie look quaint and retro in comparison. But I think part of the movie's charm all these years later is that sure, it's rough around the edges, but the story is so universal and so original it makes up for any blemishes on the technical side. The voice acting is perfect, whether it's the top-billed actors like Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, to those with smaller roles like Arlie Ermey and Laurie Metcalf. I also cannot state enough how much this movie being 81 minutes makes it so lean and paced masterfully. I saw this movie at 10 in the theater. I have watched it countless times as a kid. I have watched it countless more times as an adult as the franchise has continued, and with both of my boys having points in their young lives where they were transfixed by the characters, we of course watched it many, many more times. It is a movie that will continue to live on and on with each new generation, and I'll happily die on the hill that this is the best animated film created. Up to number 13, and the highest ranked movie of the 21st century in my own top 50, that is Paul Thomas Anderson's 2007 epic, There Will Be Blood. For those astutely monitoring the show and all my movie opinions out there, you probably know how I feel about PTA's American Epic, which stars Daniel Day-Lewis in arguably the single best piece of acting of the century. But if you don't know just how much I love this movie, you are not going to have to wait much longer, because in January 2026, I'm going to be rewriting Oscars history on the 2007 film year with Frankie and Scott from Shoot the Flick. And we will see where we all fall on what this movie may or may not have deserved to win compared to that year's actual Best Picture winner, No Country for Old Men, as well as plenty of other greats from 2007. But yes, There Will Be Blood is obviously a movie I'm a fan of. We continue into the upper crust of my top 50, and at number 12, hold on to your butts because we have Steven Spielberg entering the list for the third time. And again, he's the only director I allowed more than 2 spots on my 50. We are at 1993's dinosaur action adventure, Jurassic Park. When it comes to action and adventure, Spielberg is the certified, undisputed, reigning, defending GOAT, and I don't know if we'll ever see someone take his crown, or at least no time soon. At 8 years old when I saw Jurassic Park on a VHS copy, it blew my mind. It was one of the first movies I remember watching and understanding that there was a singular vision behind the movie, putting all the pieces in place and creating actual magic on the screen. The film is cast so well with Richard Attenborough, Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Sam Jackson, amongst others. It world builds in a way that makes you feel like this place is real, and it slow plays getting to the actual dinosaurs. And my God, once we do start to see them wreaking havoc on the park and the island, it's equal parts breathtaking and nail-biting. It also makes almost no sense that this movie still looks so good visually all these years later. With the amount of green screen schlock and bad CG we get in 2025, maybe we just didn't realize how good we had it in 1993, or maybe Spielberg is just a true one-of-one filmmaker. Whatever the case, life continues to find a way, and this movie continues to increase in legacy, even if every sequel we've gotten is leagues below the first entry. And we're going to finish this portion of the list with the film at number 11, just on the border of my top 10. It is Akira Kurosawa's second list appearance, and the film I think he will continually be most remembered for, 1954's Seven Samurai. This is the movie I always think about when it comes to a 3+ hour long epic that is truly worth the time commitment it asks you to put in. We get so many opportunities to spend time with these characters and understand their motives, their social situations, and it allows us as an audience to connect on a level that would not be afforded if it didn't let us soak in the world. All the seven samurai have style and personality, but Takashi Shimura and especially Toshiro Mifune pop off the screen and they transform into legendary figures thanks to the film. Seven Samurai is not only one of the best movies, it's also one of the most influential and ripped off movies, and yet nobody has been able to do it quite like Kurosawa did. I also covered 1954 early in season 1 last year on the show, and I don't think it's going to shock anyone to hear this Japanese classic dominated the social media vote, and it took down that year's actual Best Picture winner on The Waterfront. So there we are, the next 10 movies on my Cinema Legacy Poll Top 50. I will be back on Friday, November 21st with the final 10 movies on my list. But do not forget, many of the other contributors of the Cinema Legacy Poll have their own mini episodes dropping this month and next on the channel. So keep your eyes out for all those content releases to get their thoughts on what they decided were the best movies of all time. Thanks for being here for a little bit. I'm Andrew. Can't wait to see you next time.